We've been covering the TechCrunch Disrupt conference in San Francisco, and some of the biggest names in technology and investing are there. Among them, venture capitalist Vinod Khosla. He was the first CEO of Sun Microsystems in the 1980s and now one of the leaders in green technology investing, and he's joining us now from the TechCrunch conference. Thank you so much for joining us.
Happy to be here.
So let's talk first of all about what are you hearing about there at the conference that's getting you excited as a venture capital investor?
You know, what's very surprising is the waves of innovation you see. You think everything's done, and then Google comes along 12 years ago. People forget it didn't exist. And you think search is done, and then Facebook comes along, and then you think social media is done, and then Twitter comes along. You see waves, almost like sitting by the ocean, watch them come in. You see a whole new set of interesting new ideas. Hard to tell which ones are going to be huge, which one's going to be small and immaterial. But there's lots of innovation going on. Very, very exciting to see. I think traditional publishers like Bloomberg better watch out.
So then what's the next? I mean, even if it's hard to tell, any sort of guesses as to what's the next Google or the next Twitter?
Well, it's hard to say what's next Google or the next Twitter, but I suspect the next set of startups will have much more emotional appeal to people. So while Google was about search and if Facebook was about connecting, the next big thing is about emotional appeal, I think. I see a lot of people doing that. Food spotting is one of my favorites. You just take pictures of food and post it, and it's just taken off. Just one little example.
Okay, and of
more
course,
emotional appeal.
And of course, as we know, the fake farm animals games are very popular as well. I'm just curious, how much of your...
Well, games are games are clearly being exploited, but I suspect we'll see something other than gamification. Everybody's trying to do gamification, and I suspect Zynga's done pretty well and will continue to win. But copying old models doesn't work in this business. It's always inventing something new.
Vinod, I'm curious where you're putting your money, because you're increasingly known, of course, as a clean tech investor. Are you still interested in the kinds of companies that are more internet companies that are being talked about at that conference?
Absolutely. You know, just because we're doing clean tech, and we're doing a lot of that, doesn't mean we're not doing internet and mobile. In fact, we've made 3 new investments in internet and mobile in the last 3 weeks. All very exciting, all one-of-a-kind models. One's a community model that very few people have exploited recently. Used to be fashionable in the late 90s. The other is a payment system. A third is a new kind of advertising model. So there is all sorts of innovation happening, and we're looking aggressively across the space.
We continue our conversation now with venture capitalist Vinod Khosla, and he's joining us from the TechCrunch conference. We've been talking about some of the exciting things he's been hearing about there, but Vinod, want to turn to clean tech. And during the break, we were talking about a company that just had its IPO. It's called Amyris. AMRS is the ticker on that. It's up over the past couple of days since that IPO. You guys were the lead investors. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, Amyris is a fun story because it started, and when it came to me as an investment opportunity, it was doing anti-malarial drugs. Within 6 months, with a little help, they were doing alkanes, which is a kind of fuel for, you can do jet fuel or diesel fuel or other kinds of specialty chemicals with it. The company just did its IPO yesterday, so there's not a lot I can say. But it's the kind of innovation that's representative of what's going on all across the clean tech space. In fact, I hate to call it clean tech. I call it main tech, because every part of our lives is being changed and innovated.
When you talk about biofuels in that industry, I mean, like many parts of so-called clean tech, whatever you want to call it, alternative energy, like you've seen in regular tech, you've seen these waves of things that have gotten a lot of hype and then have gone nowhere. Ethanol, definitely one of those. It seems to have stalled out. This is something also you've invested in. What do you think the status of that investment and of ethanol generally is?
You know, calling corn ethanol biofuels is like saying the internet is about Microsoft Windows. That was 80s. Biofuels, there's a lot of innovation going on. Amyris is an example. Another company called Gevo has filed for an S1. I can't say much about it because of that, but it is examples of how definitions are changing. I suspect we'll see a few other filings, lots of innovation going on, new chemicals, new products being invented. Almost all will be based on non-food sources. They won't be based on corn, to be really, really interesting. The ones that are based on corn have done a good job, but they will transition over time and very quickly. For example, we're doing a company that takes wood chips and turns it into sugars and can replace corn ethanol or sugarcane sugars easily. That's something coming right along, probably be around here a year from now.
Just very.
So there's a lot of innovation going on, and one of the most exciting areas for investments for us, I suspect it'll be the first area of clean tech where we'll see large profits.
All right, Vinod Khosla, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Mr. Khosla joining us again from that TechCrunch conference.